If you want to manage your money like the top 1% and the way God intended, this is your quick start guide. Because one of the key lessons I've learned from by working with people who make 30 grand a year versus 3 million a year is that everybody has the same problem. It's just on a different scale. So these 4 principles I'm going to share with you today, yes, they're used by the top 1%, and if you use them, you will be the top 1%, but they're timeless and they can be used by anybody. So let's get into it. Principle number 1, this one is the foundation. It is all about stewardship, because here's the thing. If you don't know how to handle $100, why would God bless you with a million? And I get that question a lot. They think they're being funny and witty. People will ask me, because I talk about faith and finance together, sarcastically, they'll ask, well, if I ask for $1,000,000, if I pray for a million, is God just going to give it to me? If he's so powerful, is he just going to give me $1,000,000? Here's the thing. 1, if you don't know how to handle $100, why would he give you a million? But 2, he's not your little genie. Okay? Why would God continue to bless you with something that you have continually proven you're not going to use it well? And besides, let's step away from the Bible. Most lottery winners end up broke. Within a couple of years, they end up actually in a worse position than when they started before they won the lottery. Because money doesn't solve problems. You have the same problem as everybody else. It's just on a different scale. What you lack is stewardship. What you lack is the right habits, the basic financial education that will allow you to handle $100, which is how you learn how to handle a million. And where I get this is actually from the parable of the talents. This is in Matthew, I believe Matthew 25, if you want to go read it for yourself. But in the parable that Jesus was telling, in the parable of the talents, Jesus says this is an illustration of the kingdom of heaven. And if it's an illustration of the kingdom of heaven, that means it's describing the behavior of God. And so we have to really understand it. If you don't know the story or the parable, what he tells us, I'll paraphrase, is that there is a master with 3 servants. And well, he probably has a lot more servants, but what he did is he had 3 servants, and he was about to go on a long trip, a long journey. And before he goes on that trip, he takes these 3 servants and, according to their ability, gives them a portion of his wealth. So the first servant, the one with the most ability, he gave him a larger portion than the second, and the second one got a larger portion than the third. And what Jesus tells us is that the master goes on his trip, but when he comes back, he asks each of the servants what they did with his wealth. And the first servant, the one given the most, said, "Master, I used this wealth you gave me, and I didn't want to come back empty-handed, so I actually doubled it. I went out, worked it, invested it, and I doubled the wealth that you gave me." And he said, "Well done, good and faithful servant." And then the second one came and said the same thing. He had a smaller portion, but he did the same thing. See right there, if you know how to handle 100, you can handle a million. He did the same thing as the other one. He said, "Master, I went out and didn't want to come back empty-handed, so I doubled the wealth that you gave me." And he gave it back to him. He said, "Well done, good and faithful servant." But the third one, according to his ability, and that's why he got the least, the third servant came to the master and said, "Master, I also didn't want to come back empty-handed, but I didn't want to lose it. So what I did is I buried it in the ground and made sure that when you came back, I could dig it back up and give you exactly what you gave back to me, or what you gave me." And you might think, well, oh, okay, well, at least he didn't lose it. Yeah, but how many times have you given a gift to somebody and expected them not to use, or hoped that they didn't use it? Never, right? The master said, "You wicked and lazy servant. You put this where you knew where I wouldn't harvest, and you just did nothing with it. At the very least," this is what he says. This is what, actually the next principle, we'll get to it. But what he said is, "You wicked and lazy servant, at least you could have put my money in the bank to earn me some kind of interest." Right? You did nothing. And so he took the wealth and gave it to the top servant. Okay? Because it's about stewardship. It's not about being the richest person in the room. It's not about starting at the top 1%. You have to build your way up. Even the rich kids, the trust fund kids, they don't start at the top 1%. Even if they do, if they don't learn how to handle the money, they're not going to end up at the top 1%. They're going to end up at the bottom 1%. That's what happens a lot. And if you don't build up the habits now, the way you become wealthy, the way you become you get into the top 1% is by practicing the habits of the top 1%. Okay, so it's about stewardship. Use well what you are given. And it tells us, to those who use well what they have been given, God will give more. That's what it says, because you've proven he can trust you with it. So he's going to bless you with a little bit more. Okay, it's a good thing. Learn to basic financial education, budgeting, saving, an emergency fund. How much should you have? These basic things, even if you're not a financial professional, you don't need to be, because you have people like me who can help you. All right, but the second principle, now that we've established the foundation, the basic foundation, now there are three other principles that the top 1% understand very well. And that's what we're going to talk about next. They understand very well three different things. Number one, how well they are growing their money. Number two, how well they are protecting their money. And then number three, how well they're keeping their money. Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about next. But let's go one by one. The second principle, this one is about growth. Okay. And the way this works is, when you invest your money, if you want to grow your money, the last thing you want to, well, let me back up. Retirement, if that is your goal, it's not about an age, it's about your dollar amount. Nobody, if you're 65, if you have nothing in the bank, you can't retire. Just because you're 65 doesn't mean you can retire. Let's say you were 30 years old and you had $50 million sitting in the bank. If you put it in the proper places, you could retire. So it's all about the dollar amount. And the only goal of investing is to learn how to turn $1 into two, right? That's the entire goal. And the reason you need to understand this, Albert Einstein said it was one of the most powerful forces in the universe. It's called compound growth. So this is how it works. If you want to figure out how well you are growing your money, because you are growing your money. If you have a bank account, you're growing your money. But if you want to figure out how well you're growing your money, use this rule. It's called the rule of 72. And it's extremely simple. I teach this to all of my clients, to all of my teammates, because it's extremely simple, but it's extremely powerful. And if you don't understand how to use it, you're going to end up paying it. So the rule of 72 is 72 divided by your rate of return. Okay, so here's why we need to understand stewardship first, because let's say all your money is just sitting in the bank, right? If you check your bank account, your savings account, and look at the rate of return, it's probably something like 0.3% that you're getting back. I don't know, somewhere around there. You're probably getting 0.3%. The way the rule of 72 works is, if you divide 72 divided by any rate of return, whatever that number is, the rule is telling you that's when your money is going to double. So let's say you're getting lucky and your money's in the bank and you're getting 1%. 72 divided by 1 is 72, right? So that means the rule of 72 is telling you your money is going to double in 72 years. Okay, let's just pick a high yield savings account. Let's just say that. Let's say we get you 4%. 72 divided by 4 is 18. That means your money is going to double every 18 years. And I made a video about this earlier. If you want to go watch it, I forget which one. I think it's titled "God Wants You to Be Wealthy," or no, it's titled "How to Turn 1,000 into a Million," or something like that. But I did the research. If you put $1,000 into an account, that will grow at 10%, and you can get that in different places. I mean, that's the average of the S&P 500. So don't be like, oh, where are you going to get 10%? Just a quick Google search will help you out. If you have $1,000 growing in at about 10% annually, growing and compounding, it'll take about 70-ish years to get you from 1,000 to a million. And I mean, that's pretty good. All you did was invest $1,000. You're probably not going to enjoy any of that money for yourself, but you've been able to leave behind a legacy. But the crazy thing is, if we just use the rule of 72, this is how powerful it is. Your money is doubling. So if you put $1,000 and just grow it at 10%, it'll be a million in about 70 years. But in the next 7.2 years, that $1 million will be 2 million. Now, that was just you putting $1,000 into an account and never touching it, never looking at it again. Went from 1,000 to $1 million, or $2 million in about 77-ish years, close to 80 years. And again, you're probably not going to enjoy most of that for yourself, but here's the truth. When you pass away, because we all will, You will leave behind a legacy. That's the truth. But you get to decide whether it's a legacy of debt or a legacy of wealth. And in Proverbs 13:22, this is probably it's one of my favorite verses in the Bible, because it's just so simple, but it's very clear. It tells us good people leave an inheritance to their children's children, but the sinner's wealth passes to the godly. And this goes hand in hand with the parable of the talents. The sinner's wealth passes to the godly. What that means is if you're not going to do anything with it, that wealth is either going to die with you, or God's going to give it to the next godly person. Because leaving behind an inheritance, learning to grow your money, learning to invest your resources, not just money, your time and your energy, all these different things, it's not just for the top 1%. That's for the godly people. It is a godly thing to learn how to take care of your family and leave behind a legacy. I can't believe I mean, I have to make that point, but I mean, some Christians, believe it or not, I don't know if you're one of them, but they believe, oh, we're meant to be poor. Nowhere in the Bible does it say that. It says actually quite the opposite. There's a difference between being poor and modest, by the way. So use this rule of 72 to understand how well you're growing your money. If you're not growing it well enough, I mean, start doing your research. Again, we can help you, but the difference between a normal savings account and a high yield savings account, as we just saw with the rule of 72, is pretty drastic. And all you did was move it from one account into another. Okay, so do some research. But the second principle that the wealthy understand very well, this is the third principle, but after the growth, we need to learn how to protect it, right? The first principle in total for the video is about stewardship, growth, protecting it, and then keeping it. So right now we're on protecting it. The way you do this is through diversification. Okay, now the reason why we start with stewardship and growth and not going straight to diversification is because if you don't have anything to protect, you have no reason to diversify. Okay, and I'm bringing this part up because it used to go viral on every time somebody posted on TikTok or Instagram. Said, well, the average millionaire has 7 sources of income. And that might be true, but they're only telling you that so that you buy their course, and I don't know, they're going to teach you how to set up 7 streams of income right away. But that millionaire, what they're not understanding is that millionaire did not hit millionaire status by focusing on 7 different things at one time. They went all in on one thing, got very, very good at it, and then diversified. Because now they had something to protect. Diversification is about protection, not dividing your focus. But if you try to divide your focus too soon and try to diversify too soon, all you're doing is dividing your focus. You're not protecting anything, you're dividing your focus, which means you will never get to the point where you have something to protect, right? And this one is going to come to us through Ecclesiastes 11:2. And this one says, but divide your investments among many places, for you do not know what risk might lie ahead. So this is literally, the language is pretty clear there. I think in other translations, it says to divide your investments 7 places, many places. The point is you need to protect what you're growing now. And the best way to continue growing is to make sure that you don't lose. So when you do figure out how well you are growing your money, you need to figure out where to grow that money. And you really only have 3 options. If you're in the US, I'm not going to go too in depth with these because of compliance and regulations. But if you do want to sit down, we do offer those strategy sessions. I'll give you the basic overview though. The first way you can grow your money and start protecting it is through something fixed. You would see this through things like bonds, a high yield savings account, your typical bank account. Even though it's 0.3%, it's still fixed. And what that means is that you know exactly what you're going to get, right? If you called your bank right now or just went on your app and try to find what the rate of return is for your savings account, they'd be able to tell you because it's a fixed rate. It doesn't change unless they tell you it changes. So you should have a bank account. Let's make that clear. You should have a bank account, but it's not going to build wealth for you because it's very safe, which means it's low risk, low reward. The second option is something variable, which you would get through like stocks, real estate. Most companies offer a 401k, which is invested into the stock market, index funds, things like that. The value of it goes up and down. That's why it's called variable. Historically, those things do go back up. But you do have to be aware you're going to be you're going to have all the high points, but you're also going to have to be at the low points. If you have time, yes, again, if you did your proper research, historically it does come back up if you did the research and selected the proper things. So it is variable, but historically does all right. The third option is something index, and this is not for everybody, but it is another layer of protection, and it follows the growth of the variable market. And this one might be a little bit confusing to explain just in words, so I might draw a picture right here if I'm editing this video. Usually I don't, but since I'm saying it, I'll put it right here. The way it works is you mirror the growth of the variable market, but you don't actually participate in it. Your money is held in an account held by the insurance company that will credit you at the end of the year or at the end of the month, whatever the growth was. But all throughout the year, because you're not actually in it, you're just flatlining through all the variable stuff. You only grow. The guarantee is that you don't grow, but the guarantee is that you don't lose. So it's a third option for protection, and it's not going to fit everybody's needs. About 30% of people don't get approved for things like this, but you might as well figure it out, right? So diversify what you're doing, and besides just growing your money, if you only have one skill, I'm going to suggest you find another one. If you only have one income, even though you don't want to divide your focus too soon, you should probably have another one. For me, I have this business. I make money through social media, but I also make money from helping people. But within the same business, see, it's not dividing my focus, it's within the same business. The social media brings in revenue, but also I collect override income from my team, but I also collect renewal income from past clients on every anniversary date. So there's different streams of income, but it's one focus. I hope that makes sense. And for your skills, the best way to create your own job, create your own business, or get another job that you really do like, is to prove that you have skills. Companies want skills. They don't necessarily care too much about degrees anymore. If they do, then in the future, the way I see it, my opinion, of course you could tell me I'm wrong. If you think I'm right or wrong, let me know in the comments, but they're going to be looking for skills over degrees. I think that's just where it's headed. So invest in yourself. Yes, invest your money, but invest in yourself. Become the most valuable asset that you have. It's you. Okay, so that's the third principle, protection. Now the last one is about keeping what you have. Okay, and for this one, I'm not a tax specialist, so I'm not going to start creating tax strategies for you, but I can explain what the different categories are, because as much as you can grow what you have, as much as you can protect what you have, it doesn't matter if you go to cash it out and the government takes all of it, right? As much as it would be, as awesome as it would be, Uncle Sam is not your real uncle, and he doesn't actually care about you. Okay, so you really need to understand what taxes are and how they're applied to you. Because a lot of people, here's the problem, a lot of people that I've run into, I actually just had this conversation 30 minutes ago, and it's kind of why it's fresh on my mind. They don't understand that different accounts are taxed differently. So when you are investing your money into a 401k, even though you're getting a contribution match, you can't touch that money until you're 59 and a half years old unless you want to pay a penalty and the current tax rate. If you touch it any time before then, and if they don't raise it, you're going to get hit with a penalty. Let's say you do hit 59 and a half. Right now the taxes are historically low. I mean, let's say it's 20%. That might be low, but that's historically low. That's still 20% of the value of your account, right? When you hit 59 and a half, let's say for me, that's in over 30 years. I have no idea what the tax rate's going to be. And I was just at a conference and listening to this guy. His name was Ed Slott, I believe. And he is a tax specialist. What he was telling us, the number one rule of investing is, well, one, don't lose your money, but two, buy low, sell high. And what you're doing, if you refuse to understand at least how taxes work, what you're doing is you're buying high and you're selling low. You're cutting yourself short. Gain a basic financial understanding of how taxes work. And I get this question a lot on my live streams as well. People ask me, well, how much should I tithe? Should I tithe before tax or after tax? What does God actually want us to do? And the short answer to that is it's up to you. And then the second thing I'll get is, well, it says give to Caesar what is Caesar's, right? Basically, if you don't know what that means, is people are asking, well, how much should we pay in taxes to Caesar? Because they were in Rome. Caesar's face was on the coins. And Jesus said, give to Caesar what is Caesar's, give to God what is God's. The thing is, people say, well, that means we should be paying taxes. Well, yeah, if you don't owe Caesar, don't pay Caesar. Why would you want to pay Caesar more than what you owe him? Pay what you owe, pay your fair share, but why would you pay more than you are required to give? If you are not required to give it, keep it. Do something with it. Protect it. Keep growing it. Do something. Don't give what you don't owe. Uncle Sam is not your real uncle, so figure out what you're doing. And besides money again, your skills. Protecting and keeping your skills. It's a muscle. Your brain is a muscle. The more you use it, the better it gets. But as soon as you stop using it, you immediately start degrading. You're either growing or you're dying. There's no in between. So if you want to keep what you have, if you want God to continue to bless you, you need to, one, steward it well. You need to learn how to grow it, your time, your energy, your resources, your money, all these different things. Then you need to learn how to protect it, and that way you can keep it. Okay, and as always, I'm going to cut it here because if not, I'll start rambling. And if you like any of these videos so far, or if you like this one so far, if you learned anything, come check out some other ones because TikTok's about to get banned, so I'll be more on YouTube. But all right, I'll see you in the next video. Bye.